Hey there, and welcome back to the channel. I want to start out by wishing you all a happy and healthy new year. I hadn't gotten around to doing that yet, and I see many of you putting up your videos about what your goals are and some things that you would like to accomplish in 2020, so I thought I would do the same. My goals aren't a whole lot different than they were in 2019, but one thing I'd like to do is start branching out a little bit more and expanding my horizons and getting away from St. Mary's Lake. Even though it's very convenient, only 10 minutes away from my house, but I want to try to fish some new waters, and in order to facilitate that, I'm going to start combining some of my fishing trips with camping trips. And I don't have a whole lot of camping gear, so I've been gearing up during the holiday season, and I thought I'd share some of that stuff with you and hopefully collect your thoughts on some of this gear if you've used it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it, and I'll show you some of the things that I have picked up over the past couple of weeks. Alright, one thing I want to start out with is that I want to show you this big tote that I bought a few months back. And I ordinarily keep this in the back of my truck anyway, under the tonneau cover. It fits back there very nicely, and I can also keep it in there when I have my kayak loaded. So that's important to me. But this thing's pretty big, and it's got a nice, clamp shut, sealable lid on it. And what I would like to do is all this gear that I'm going to show you, I'd like for most of it to be able to fit in here and kind of be self-contained so that I can just pick it up and go. And I will try to load everything into it when I get to the end of the video, so stand by for that. Okay, so usually the first thing most people think of when they think of camping is a tent or some sort of shelter. So after much research, I narrowed down my decision to the Alps Mountaineering Lynx 4. And they call it a backpacking tent, but for serious backpackers, I doubt you'd want to carry something this heavy into the woods. So I'm going to use it as a camping tent. And I wanted something a little bit nicer than, the Coleman quality stuff that you could get at Walmart or whatever, even though that stuff probably would have suited my needs just fine. But I saw a lot of good reviews on this one, and it was very, very simple to put up, and I have actually tried to do that myself already out in the yard the day I got it. And it was very simple. The first time I did it, it took me around 7 minutes, and I'm sure 5 is probably closer to what it should really take. And it broke down pretty easily also, and I didn't have any problems getting it back into the stuff sack here. Let me know if you've ever used the Lynx series of tents from Alps Mountaineering and what you think of them. And I'll try to update you on that on my future camping trips. And then, of course, to protect my investment, I will try my best not to put that tent down on the bare ground and put it on some sort of tarp. This is a pretty cheap one, and I don't really think you need too much more than that. Only problem is, this one is about 6 by 8, and I think I need an 8 by 10 to make sure that my tent's not hanging over the edges. I think that tent is roughly a 8 by 7. So if I get an 8 by 10, that should allow me to get good coverage, and as well as have a little bit of plastic hanging out into the vestibule areas. For sleeping, this is about as budget as they come. I believe we got this at Target several years ago. The brand is Greatland, and I doubt it cost 20 bucks if that. And it's not a very rated sleeping bag for low temps or anything, but it'll get the job done in the fair weather that I plan on camping in. And it may not last very long. The zippers seem pretty cheap on it and everything, but if it starts tearing up, I'll just go purchase a new one. But I don't want to invest a whole lot of money in a high-end camping sleeping bag. I camped out in this once last year, and it did just fine. We usually keep 3 or 4 of these around the house for when we have overnight guests, especially when the kids were younger and they'd have sleepovers and things like that. And I usually roll it out on an air mattress, and this one I think is an Intex brand. I don't remember how much that costs. I think you can probably find these things on Amazon for probably 15 bucks if you're shopping around. And I definitely need one of these when I'm out camping, because I'm in my mid-50s and I'm starting to get the typical aches and pains in my hips and knees and everything, so I don't need to be sleeping on the ground. I'm trying to see if I can get a brand name off this one. Tex Sport. So I'll have to look up the price on that, but that's the brand name. And to air that thing up, we've got one of these Coleman quick pump 4D is what they call that thing. And this one takes D-size batteries, but I've got one around here somewhere that's rechargeable. I just couldn't get my eyeballs on it. And that one's a bit more convenient. You can plug it into a cigarette lighter and recharge it, and definitely get enough out of it to air up a couple of air mattresses. But you can get quite a few aired up on 4D size batteries also. All right, for camp lighting, my wife also bought me this Odoland branded LED light slash fan, and so it's got both in there and you can use them independently. And this thing also runs off D-size batteries. Looks like it's probably big enough to hold 2 of them. And the online reviews that I read said that you can get about 2 or 3 nights of, you know, fan operation on that if you run it on the low speed. And obviously if you're, you know, burning the light a lot, it'll decrease from there. But I don't plan on camping for more than, you know, maybe 2 or 3 nights at a time. And so I think, you know, a set of these will probably get me by on that. And, you know, it's got a nice little handle on it that you can, you know, hang from the top of the tent or wherever you need to take it. Very portable, very lightweight. May not be real durable, but, you know, it wasn't very expensive either. I think you can buy these for like $14 or $15. I actually saw one identical to it in Dick's Sporting Goods the other day that was under the Field and Stream brand. For my stove, I chose the Coleman Triton series, and it's a slight upgrade to the old green, you know, basic Coleman camp stove. And I think I'm going to be pretty happy with this one. It uses those little 1-pound propane bottles, and I haven't purchased any of those yet. But I have purchased an adapter so that I can refill them from my 20-pound barbecue propane tank out back. Hopefully save a little bit of money there. And this one doesn't have the push button ignition on it, but I'm going to have a fire starter anyway, so I just bought the $2 Bic multi-purpose lighter there, and that should get the job done. But you can see what comes with this thing. It's got 2 burners, and I think they're each rated at 10 or 11,000 BTUs. And a nice chrome plated steel grate there to set your pots and pans on. So I think this will serve me nicely, and I'll just probably set it up on the tailgate of my truck most of the time and cook away. To go along with the camp stove, I picked up this Coughlin's camp griddle, and you can tell by the size of it that it'll fit almost perfectly over those 2 burners. You know, in case I want to, you know, grill something like, you know, bacon or, you know, cook eggs or pancakes or something like that. And you can see I still haven't taken it out of the plastic, but I figured it wouldn't take up much space and be easy to throw into the kit there. All right, for cookware, I went with Stanley, and after reading lots of Amazon reviews and looking at high-end gear that was very expensive versus very, very low-end gear that was probably garbage and wouldn't hold up well, I narrowed down my choices to this stuff, and we'll just kind of start out with this little cooker here. It's pretty nice. All this stuff is stainless steel. Got a nice handle on there that you can lock down. Little plastic tab on the top so you don't burn yourself. The only thing about that is I hear that those things melt if you're trying to heat it up over a campfire, so I'll try to limit its usage to my camp stove. And this thing comes with a couple of plastic cups, and anyway, I'm just thinking that that'll be very handy to boil water in, and I'll probably just roll with instant coffee when I'm camping out. So let me know if you've used this set before and what you think. And then for cookware, I went with the Stanley Adventure Base Camp 4X, meaning that you're in here to cook for 4 people. And pretty happy with that. It's got a nice little bungee on there that holds the whole thing together, and stainless steel lid. And in case you're wondering how to put it all back together, it's got it all diagrammed out for you right there. So it makes that simple. But it comes with a frying pan with a foldable handle, and that's a pretty good heavy stainless steel frying pan. It's got a good thick bottom on it, and I hear good reviews about it. It's got a set of utensils, a spatula, and a spoon that just kind of click together. Again, you probably want to be careful using these over an open flame lest they melt, but I think it'll be just fine me cooking on a stove. It's got bowls and saucers for 4, as well as a cutting board, sporks for 4, a little trivet so you don't have to worry about burning your hands on a pan, and a little plastic thingy that serves as a drying rack or a dish rack for these little cups and saucers. Don't know that I'll ever use it that way. I don't know why I wouldn't just dry it off with a towel or something, but that's the way it works. Anyway, I think this is going to be a pretty nice cook set. Let me know if you have any experience with it, and if you have any recommendations on what I might need to do it to prep. For example, I see some videos where people think you need to season these stainless steel pans with oil, and I don't know about that, but if you have experience with that, let me know. All right, utensils. For Christmas, my wife gifted me these by Wheelers, and you can find these on Amazon also. Anyway, it's just a self-contained kit. It's got all your cooking utensils that you could possibly need, and got nice stainless steel. If I can position that so you can see it. There you go. Spatula, tongs. It's got a ladle in there, a pair of scissors, and on the other side you can see it's got another cutting board, a knife, a little rice spatula, and then I think there's a corkscrew, bottle opener, and I believe it's got a can opener in there too. Not sure. If it doesn't, I need to get a can opener. But that's that. And these being stainless kind of drove my decision to go with stainless cookware instead of non-stick, because I knew these things would scrape up non-stick pretty bad. But anyway, I'm pretty happy with that kit, and I think it'll come in very handy on my camping trips. All right, I don't know that this is going to be totally necessary, but I thought it might be a good idea to pick up one of these water storage cubes. This one is a 5.3 gallon unit, and I picked it up off Amazon. It was $8 or $9. I think that most of the places I'll be camping will be established campsites, in state and national parks and things like that, where they will have potable water available. So I can just fill this thing up there and have 5 gallons to, drink, cook, wash from, and everything. So mainly just a convenience item to have some water on hand and not have to, buy several cases of bottled water and carry those around. I'm sure that I am occasionally going to need to wash this thing out pretty thoroughly with, bleach or whatever to keep the critters at bay. The last new item I have to show you is this camp axe, little hatchet from Coghlan's also. And I know this is not the premier camping hatchet, and I knew that before I bought it, but it was only about 10 bucks. And I'm sure it'll be like swinging a hammer when I try to, chop a log with it. But I needed something to kind of split up kindling, and you can always use the blunt end to hammer in tent stakes if you need to do that. So that's that. For 10 bucks, I didn't think I could beat it just to throw it in the kit there. I may take it to my local hardware store and see if they can put a better edge on it. All right, so that's it for all the new stuff that I've bought recently and some of the stuff that I already had laying around the house. So now let's see how much of it I can get into that tote. Well, that was a piece of cake. I think I had room to spare. I didn't try to get the sleeping bag in there. Keep in mind that I pretty much have the whole back seat of my truck, the front seat if I'm by myself, and still a lot of room in the bed. But also I'm hauling my kayak and all my fishing gear. Most of that I can put inside the front hatch of the Bonafide kayak, like my fishing rods and life preservers and things like that. I can put a lot of gear in there and carry it that way. My crate will probably have to go in the back seat as well as the kayak seat, but I still have a ton of room for food and other things that I'm going to need to carry, like camping chairs and And I'm considering purchasing a portable power station so that I can, recharge GoPro batteries and cell phones and things like that. But I also have the AC outlet in the back of my pickup truck that will, run things up to 400 watts if I have the truck running, so I can use that in a pinch. And also, many of the campsites that I'm going to use are going to have electric power available to them. And so if that's the case, I'm just going to take along this power cord on a reel that I have out in my garage that I use around the house and outside, that I use for chores and power tools and things like that. I can just throw it in the truck, plug it in, and then I have 4 outlets right here to power whatever I need. I've also ordered some extra GoPro batteries and things like that to make sure I'm good to go for a couple of days. And then of course I'm going to need some coolers, and like most of you, I have 3 or 4 of those things sitting in the garage collecting dust, so I didn't feel the need to go out and buy some specialty cooler, or especially some $300 or $400 one, when I've got these perfectly fine coolers right here that will certainly hold ice for a couple of days as long as I'm going to need them. But that is it. Some of the places that I have already scheduled and on the calendar to camp include, in March, I'm going to go down and try to camp at Newport News Park down in Newport News, Virginia. It's co-located on Lee Hall Reservoir, which is also kind of part of Newport News Reservoir. And if any of you have bass fish there, let me know what to expect there. But it looks very, very nice, and it's right in the big middle of Newport News, so I won't be roughing it too much if I need something. Walmart's probably only a few minutes away. So I've got that trip planned for March. And in April, I've got a trip planned to Occoneechee State Park, which is how I believe it's pronounced, on Kerr Lake down in Virginia, on the Virginia-North Carolina border. I'm going to try to camp out there for 2 days and see if I can catch some fish out of Kerr Lake. Let me know if you have experience either camping there or fishing there. And then I don't have anything set up yet for May, but in June I'm looking at going to the South Fork of the Shenandoah River. It's a 4-hour or so drive away, but there's a nice campground there that's privately owned. It's right there on the South Fork of the river, and I have made contact with the proprietor, who tells me to contact him in February and he can make me a reservation. So I think that might be a pretty nice trip. Go out there and chase some smallmouth, which I don't have a lot of experience catching, but I think it'll be fun. So that's it. Hey, thanks for watching, and also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. You can do that by clicking in the button right down there in the lower, I guess, right-hand corner. And again, I hope you had a very happy new year and a blessed holiday season, and hope 2020 finds you lots of health and happiness and big fish. So take care. We'll see you next time.